If you would like a copy of this free PDF book, follow the link in the description. Chapter 4: Learning to Say No. Why learning to say no is important. Why is it important to learn to say no? There are many psychological theories that suggest it is beneficial for our mental and physical health. Saying no allows us to focus on our priorities, can help reduce stress and anxiety, improve relationships, increase productivity, and make us happier. It can also protect our physical health and reduce the risk of burnout. Learning to say no is a sign of maturity. It shows that we are able to set boundaries and take care of ourselves. When we say no, we are asserting our independence and taking control of our lives. Priorities. It is important to learn to say no so that we can focus on our priorities. We all have limited time and energy, and it is not possible to do everything. By saying no to things that are not a priority, we can focus on the things that are most important to us. This can help us to achieve our goals and live a more fulfilling life. Stress and anxiety. Saying no can also help reduce stress and anxiety. When we say yes to too many things, we can feel overwhelmed and stressed out. This can lead to anxiety and even depression. Learning to say no can help us to avoid these negative feelings. Relationships. Saying no can also improve our relationships. When we say yes to everything, we can end up feeling resentful towards the people who are taking advantage of us. This can damage our relationships and make them less enjoyable. However, if we learn to say no, we can set boundaries in our relationships and avoid feeling taken advantage of. We can also avoid doing things that we don't really want to do, which can make us happier. Productivity. Another benefit of learning to say no is that it can increase our productivity. When we have too many things on our plate, it is difficult to focus on any of them. This can lead to us feeling stressed and overwhelmed, and we may not be able to get anything done. However, if we learn to say no, we can focus on the things that are most important to us and get more done. Happiness. Saying no can also make us happier. When we say yes to everything, we can end up doing things that we don't really want to do. This can lead to feelings of unhappiness and dissatisfaction. However, if we learn to say no, we can avoid these negative feelings and focus on the things that make us happy. Self-esteem. Another benefit of learning to say no is that it can improve our self-esteem. When we say yes to everything, we can end up feeling like we are not good enough. This can damage our self-esteem and make us feel bad about ourselves. However, if we learn to say no, we can avoid these negative feelings and boost our self-esteem. Control. Saying no can also give us a sense of control over our lives. When we say yes to everything, we can feel like we are not in control of our lives. This can be very stressful and lead to anxiety and depression. However, if we learn to say no, we can take back control of our lives and reduce the amount of stress and anxiety that we feel. Physical health. Another benefit of learning to say no is that it can protect our physical health. When we say yes to everything, we can end up doing things that are not good for us. This can lead to physical problems such as fatigue, illness, and even injury. However, if we learn to say no, we can avoid these negative consequences and take care of our bodies. Burnout. Finally, learning to say no can help reduce the risk of burnout. Burnout is a state of physical, mental, and emotional exhaustion that can be caused by excessive stress. When we are constantly saying yes to things, we can end up feeling overwhelmed and stressed out. This can lead to burnout. However, if we learn to say no, we can avoid this negative outcome. In conclusion, there are many benefits to learning to say no. It can help us focus on our priorities, reduce stress and anxiety, improve our relationships, increase our productivity, make us happier, boost our self-esteem, give us a sense of control over our lives, protect our physical health, and reduce the risk of burnout. Therefore, it is clear that learning to say no is an important skill that everyone should learn. The benefits of saying no. When I talk of benefits, I am talking about the benefits to you as an individual. Saying no can be hard, but it is always worth it in the end. Saying no can help improve your mental and physical health. When you say yes to everything, you can quickly become overwhelmed and stressed. This can lead to a whole host of health problems, both mental and physical. Saying no means you can focus on what is truly important to you and gives you time to rest and relax. When you say no to things that are not important to you, it frees up time and energy to focus on your goals. It is easy to get sidetracked by things that are not important, but if you stay focused on your goals, you will be more likely to achieve them. Saying no can actually improve your relationships. When you say yes to everything, people can take advantage of you and your time. Saying no shows that you value your time and sets boundaries in relationships. This can lead to more respect from others and deeper, more meaningful relationships. Saying no gives you back control of your life. When you say yes to everything, other people have a lot of control over how you spend your time and what you do with your life. If you start saying no, you will find that you have more control over your life and can make choices that are best for you. When you say no to things that do not make you happy, it allows you to focus on the things that do make you happy. This can lead to an overall increase in happiness. When you are happy, it is also easier to be positive and optimistic about life, which can lead to even more happiness. Saying no can help reduce stress. As mentioned before, when you say yes to everything, it can quickly lead to feelings of being overwhelmed and stressed. This can have a negative impact on your mental and physical health. Reducing stress can lead to a more positive outlook on life and improved health. When you say no, it forces you to be more selective about what you say yes to. This can lead to better decision-making overall. When you have to make a choice, you are more likely to take the time to consider all of your options and make a decision that is best for you. Saying no means that you have to focus on what is truly important to you. This can help simplify your life and make it easier to focus on the things that matter most. When everything in your life is important, it can be hard to focus on anything. But when you only have a few things that are truly important to you, it is much easier to focus and stay on track. Saying no can give you more time to rest and relax. When you are always saying yes, it can be hard to find time for yourself. But when you start saying no, you will have more free time to do the things you enjoy or just relax. This can lead to a more well-rounded life and improved mental and physical health. Saying no sets boundaries in your relationships and in your life. When you say yes to everything, people can take advantage of you and your time. But when you start saying no, you are telling people that you have limits and that you are not going to let them control your life. This can lead to more respect from others and improved relationships. Overcoming the fear of saying no. The definition of fear is an emotion induced by a perceived threat which causes changes in physiological and psychological state, such as increased heart rate and blood pressure. In other words, it's the body's natural response to feeling threatened. There are different types of fear, such as the fear of failure, the fear of success, and the fear of public speaking. However, I will focus on overcoming the fear of saying no. Saying no can be difficult because we don't want to disappoint others or come across as rude. We also might not want to miss out on an opportunity. However, it is important to learn how to say no so that we can set boundaries and protect our time and energy. Here are some ways to overcome the fear of saying no. Identify your fears. The first step is to identify what you're afraid of. Are you afraid of disappointing others? Are you afraid of missing out? Once you know what your fears are, you can start to address them. Set boundaries. It's important to set boundaries so that you can protect your time and energy. You don't have to say yes to everything. In fact, it's okay to say no sometimes. Know your worth. Remember that you are worth more than just your time and energy. You are a unique individual with a lot to offer. Say no to the things that don't align with your values or worth. Be assertive. Assertiveness is key when it comes to saying no. You don't have to be aggressive, but you should be firm in your decision. Remember that you have a right to say no. Practice self-care. Saying no can be difficult, so it's important to practice self-care. Make sure to take care of yourself emotionally and physically. This will help you to feel more confident and capable of saying no. Visualize success. Visualize yourself saying no and imagine how it will feel. This will help you to see the situation in a more positive light and feel more confident about saying no. Be prepared. It's important to be prepared for the worst-case scenario. This way, you'll know that you can handle anything that comes your way. Practice what you're going to say ahead of time so that you're more likely to stay calm in the moment. Use positive affirmations. Use positive affirmations to remind yourself that you are capable and strong. Some examples of positive affirmations include, I am worthy of respect, I am enough, and I am deserving of love. Take a deep breath. Whenever you're feeling nervous or scared, take a few deep breaths. This will help to calm your nerves and ease your fears. Just do it. Sometimes the best way to overcome your fear is to just do it. Face your fear head-on and see what happens. You might be surprised at how well you handle the situation. Saying no can be difficult, but it's important to learn how to do it so that you can set boundaries and protect your time and energy. Use these tips to help you overcome the fear of saying no. Setting limits with family and friends. When we actively set limits with our family and friends, we are indicating what behaviors are acceptable and what are not. This can be a difficult task, especially if we have been used to responding in a certain way to the people in our lives. However, by setting limits, we are better able to take care of ourselves and maintain healthier relationships. Be clear about your expectations. When you are communicating with family and friends, be clear about what you expect from the interaction. If you are expecting a certain level of support or behavior, make this known upfront. This will help to avoid misunderstandings later on. Do not hesitate to say no. It is perfectly fine to say no when you are asked to do something that you do not want to do. Do not feel like you have to explain yourself or justify your decision. Just politely decline and move on. Be assertive in your communication. If you find yourself getting walked all over by family and friends, it is time to start being more assertive in your communication. This does not mean that you have to be rude or aggressive. Simply state what you want or need in a clear and direct way. Set boundaries and stick to them. Once you have established what your limits are, it is important that you stick to them. Do not let anyone convince you to lower your standards or expectations. If someone is not respecting your boundaries, it may be necessary to distance yourself from them. Do not be afraid to stand up for yourself. It is important that you advocate for yourself, even if it means going against family or friends. If you feel like you are being treated unfairly, speak up and let the other person know how you feel. Be mindful of your own needs. In any relationship, it is important to take care of your own needs first and foremost. This does not mean that you should be selfish, but rather that you should put your own well-being above everything else. Do not be afraid to ask for help. If you are struggling to set boundaries or communicate effectively with family and friends, do not hesitate to seek out professional help. A therapist can assist you in learning how to better manage your relationships. Take breaks as needed. If you are feeling overwhelmed by your interactions with family and friends, it is okay to take a break. This can be anything from taking a few days off from social media to completely cutting ties with certain people. Do what is best for you and your mental health. Seek out healthy relationships. Not all relationships are going to be healthy or supportive. If you find yourself in a toxic situation, it may be necessary to end the relationship entirely. Seek out people who make you feel good about yourself and who respect your boundaries. Practice self-care. Setting limits with family and friends can be stressful and exhausting. Make sure to practice self-care in order to avoid burnout. This can include things like getting regular exercise, eating a balanced diet, and spending time with loved ones. Saying no at work. Saying no at work can be hard, but it's important to do what's best for you. This is because people-pleasing can lead to you getting overwhelmed, stressed out, and burnt out. It can also lead to you not being able to focus on your own work, which can impact your productivity. Here are some useful ways to help you say no at work. Set boundaries with your boss or supervisor. When you do this, make sure to be clear about what you're comfortable with and what you're not comfortable with. This way, they will know where to draw the line. Don't be afraid to speak up for yourself. If you feel like you're being taken advantage of, or if you're being asked to do something that you're not comfortable with, then speak up. It's important to assert yourself and let others know where your boundaries are. Be clear about your availability. When you're saying no to someone, make sure to be clear about why you're saying no. For example, if you're saying no to extra work because you already have a lot on your plate, then let them know that. This way, they'll understand why you're saying no, and they won't be as likely to try to push you. Don't feel guilty about saying no. Remember that you're doing what's best for you, and so there's no need to feel guilty. If someone tries to make you feel guilty, then stand your ground and remind them that you're entitled to say no. Offer an alternative solution. If you're saying no to something because you can't do it, or because you don't have the time, offer an alternative solution. For example, if you're unable to do extra work because of your workload, offer to do it at a later date or suggest another person who could do it. Be firm in your decision. Once you've decided to say no, don't back down. This will only make the other person more likely to try to convince you to change your mind. If they try to pressure you, stand your ground and remind them that you're entitled to your own opinion. Don't be afraid of confrontation. Sometimes, saying no can lead to conflict. However, this doesn't mean that you should avoid it. If someone is making you uncomfortable, or if they're not respecting your wishes, then confront them about it. Let them know how you feel and why their behavior is unacceptable. Seek support from others. If you're feeling overwhelmed or like you can't say no, reach out to your friends or family for support. They can help you to stick to your decision and they can provide you with moral support. Take some time for yourself. If you're feeling stressed out from saying no, take some time for yourself. This can be anything from taking a break from work, to going for a walk, to reading a book. Do whatever you need to do in order to relax and rejuvenate yourself. Remember that you're not obliged to say yes. Just because someone asks you to do something, doesn't mean that you have to say yes. You're entitled to your own opinion and you don't owe anyone anything. If someone is pressuring you into doing something that you don't want to do, then walk away. Saying no at work can be hard, but it's important to do what's best for you. This is because people-pleasing can lead to you getting overwhelmed, stressed out, and burnt out. It can also lead to you not being able to focus on your own work, which can impact your productivity. So, if you're feeling like you need to say no more at work, use these tips to help you. Saying no to your inner critic. Your inner critic is that voice inside your head that tells you that you're not good enough, that you can't do it, or that you're not worth it. It's the voice of self-doubt and discouragement. We all have an inner critic, but some of us are more aware of it than others. For some of us, our inner critic is so loud and so constant that it feels like it's running the show. It can be hard to imagine a life without it. The good news is, you don't have to live with your inner critic. There are things you can do to quieten it down or even get rid of it entirely. Here are some ways to say no to your inner critic. Acknowledge it. The first step to dealing with your inner critic is to acknowledge that it exists. It's easy to pretend like it doesn't, but that only makes it more powerful. When you acknowledge it, you take away its power. Give it a name. This might seem like a silly thing to do, but giving your inner critic a name can help you to distance yourself from it. It can also make it feel less real and less intimidating. Talk back to it. When your inner critic speaks, don't just accept what it says as true. Challenge it. Question its motives. Tell it to shut up. The more you do this, the less power it will have over you. Write it down. Get everything your inner critic has to say out of your head and onto paper, or into a document on your computer. Once it's out there, you can start to see it for what it is, a bunch of negative thoughts that don't deserve your attention. Take away its power. Your inner critic thrives on the power you give it. So take that power away. Refuse to listen to its whispers or heed its warnings. It's not worth your time or energy. Find your evidence. When your inner critic tells you that you're not good enough, find evidence to dispute that claim. Think of all the times you have been good enough. Remember all the times you have succeeded. Use those examples to silence your inner critic. Get rid of perfectionism. Perfectionism is one of the things that feeds your inner critic. So get rid of it. Set realistic standards for yourself and learn to be okay with imperfection. This will go a long way in silencing your inner critic. Be kind to yourself. Your inner critic is never going to be kind to you, so you need to be kind to yourself instead. Treat yourself with compassion and understanding. Forgive yourself when you make mistakes. Show yourself some love and care. Seek professional help. If your inner critic is really holding you back, it might be time to seek professional help. A therapist can help you to understand your inner critic and learn how to deal with it. Practice self-compassion. Self-compassion is one of the most effective weapons against your inner critic. When you're able to be kind and understanding towards yourself, your inner critic doesn't stand a chance. These are just a few of the ways you can say no to your inner critic. Experiment and see which ones work best for you. Remember, you don't have to live with this negative voice inside your head. You can silence it or get rid of it entirely. It's up to you. Practicing the art of saying no. Practicing the art of saying no is important because it allows you to set boundaries, protect your time and energy, and avoid burning out. One of the most important things you can do for yourself is to set boundaries. By learning to say no, you can better control what comes into your life and avoid taking on more than you can handle. This will help prevent you from feeling overwhelmed or stressed out. Saying no can also help you protect your time and energy. If you find yourself constantly saying yes to others, you may end up feeling exhausted and resentful. But if you learn to say no when you need to, you can better manage your time and energy and avoid burnout. Burnout is a state of physical, emotional, and mental exhaustion. It can happen when you feel like you've been giving your all to something, but it's just not enough. If you're constantly saying yes to others, you may be more likely to experience burnout. But if you learn to say no when you need to, you can avoid this. Your health is important, and it should always be a priority. If you find yourself taking on too much, it can be difficult to maintain your health. But if you learn to say no, you can better manage your time and energy and avoid putting your health at risk. Healthy relationships are built on trust, respect, and communication. If you're always saying yes to others, you may start to feel taken for granted. But if you learn to say no, you can set boundaries and improve your relationships. Saying no can help you avoid conflict. If you're constantly saying yes to others, you may find yourself in situations that are beyond your control. But if you learn to say no, you can avoid these situations and reduce the amount of stress in your life. There's only so much you can do in a day, week, or month. If you try to do too much, you may start to feel overwhelmed and stressed out. But if you learn to say no, you can preserve your sanity and avoid feeling like you're constantly running around in circles. When was the last time you did something just for fun? If you're always saying yes to others, it can be easy to forget about your own interests and hobbies. But if you learn to say no, you can make time for the things you love and rediscover your passions. Saying no can actually help you be more productive. If you're constantly saying yes to others, you may find yourself stretched thin and unable to focus on any one task. But if you learn to say no, you can focus your attention on the things that are truly important and get more done. The key to a happy and healthy life is balance. If you're always saying yes to others, you may find yourself out of balance and feeling overwhelmed. But if you learn to say no, you can create more space in your life for the things that matter most to you and find a better sense of peace and calm. Saying no in difficult situations. Saying no in difficult situations may be much harder to do because you do not want to disappoint or hurt the other person's feelings. However, you need to be assertive and stand your ground in order to maintain healthy relationships and respect yourself. When you are saying no, it is important to be clear with your words so that there is no misunderstanding. Be assertive and firm, but do not use aggressive language. If you can, try to explain your reasons for saying no in a calm and rational manner. This will help the other person understand where you are coming from and why you are saying no. Sometimes, it may be helpful to offer an alternative solution. For example, if you can't go to a friend's party because you have prior commitments, suggest getting together another time. It is also important to be respectful when saying no. Avoid using put-downs or name-calling, and do not raise your voice. In some cases, it may be best to just walk away from the situation. This is often true if the other person is becoming angry or aggressive. Remember that you have a right to say no, even if the other person doesn't like it. You should not feel guilty or obligated to do something that you don't want to do. It is also important to be aware of your own limits and boundaries. Do not agree to do something that you know you cannot or will not be able to do. Sometimes, people may try to guilt you into doing something by saying things like, "It's not a big deal," or "It's no trouble at all." However, you should not let these comments sway your decision. In some cases, people may try to pressure you into doing something by offering rewards or threats. For example, they may say things like, "If you do this for me, I'll do something for you," or "If you don't do this, I'll be very upset." Again, it is important to stand your ground and not give in to these types of pressure tactics. Finally, remember that saying no is not always easy, but it can be done. Be assertive, respectful, and aware of your own limits, and you will be able to say no in even the most difficult situations. Here are 10 examples of how you can say no in difficult situations. 1. I'm sorry, but I don't think I can do that. 2. I'm not comfortable doing that. 3. That doesn't work for me. 4. I'm not able to do that right now. 5. Let me think about it and get back to you. 6. Unfortunately, I have to say no to that. 7. No, thank you. 8. That doesn't interest me. 9. Maybe some other time, but not now. 10. Sorry, but the answer is still no. Saying no can be difficult, but it is important to do what is best for you. Be assertive and firm in your words, but try to remain respectful and calm. Chapter 5: Setting Boundaries with Others. Why is it important to set boundaries with others? We often hear the phrase boundaries in reference to personal relationships. But what exactly are boundaries? And why is it important to set them? Simply put, boundaries are the lines we draw that indicate what we will and won't tolerate from others. They help us protect our physical and emotional space, and they allow us to maintain a healthy sense of self. Boundaries aren't always easy to set or maintain, but they're crucial for keeping our relationships healthy and positive. Here are 10 reasons why it's so important to set boundaries with others. Boundaries help us respect ourselves. When we know our own boundaries, we're better able to respect ourselves. We can say no to things we don't want to do, and we can stick up for ourselves when we're being treated unfairly. Respecting our own boundaries also means taking care of ourselves emotionally and physically, something that's essential for a healthy sense of self. Boundaries help us respect others. When we have healthy boundaries, we're more likely to treat others with respect. We're less likely to try to control or manipulate them, and more likely to give them the space they need. This mutual respect is essential for any positive relationship, whether it's with a family member, friend, or romantic partner. Boundaries help us avoid unhealthy relationships. One of the main reasons boundary setting is so important is that it helps us avoid unhealthy relationships. If we don't know our own boundaries, we may end up in relationships with people who are emotionally or physically abusive. But if we have healthy boundaries, we're more likely to attract partners who respect us and treat us well. Boundaries help us build trust. Another important reason to set boundaries is that it helps build trust, both in ourselves and in our relationships. When we know our own boundaries, we're less likely to make promises we can't keep or do things that violate our values. And when we communicate our boundaries clearly to others, they can trust that we'll follow through on what we say. This mutual trust is crucial for any relationship to thrive. Boundaries help us stay true to ourselves. One of the best things about setting boundaries is that it helps us stay true to ourselves. When we know our own boundaries, we're less likely to do things that go against our values or beliefs. We're also less likely to let others pressure us into doing things we don't want to do. Instead, we can stand firm in who we are and what we believe, something that's essential for a healthy sense of self. Boundaries help us communicate our needs. Another important benefit of boundaries is that they help us communicate our needs. When we have healthy boundaries, we're more likely to speak up when we're feeling overwhelmed or stressed out. We're also more likely to ask for help when we need it. This ability to communicate our needs is essential for any healthy relationship. Boundaries help us set limits on behavior. If we want to maintain healthy relationships, it's important to set boundaries that limit unacceptable behavior. For example, we might set a boundary that says we won't tolerate being yelled at or treated disrespectfully. When we set these kinds of limits, we're more likely to have positive and respectful relationships with others. Boundaries help us make decisions from a place of strength. Another reason boundary setting is so important is that it helps us make decisions from a place of strength. When we know our own boundaries, we're less likely to let others talk us into doing things we don't want to do. Instead, we can make decisions based on what's best for us, something that's essential for a healthy sense of self. Boundaries help us protect our time and energy. When we have healthy boundaries, we're better able to protect our time and energy. We can say no to commitments that would be too demanding or stressful, and we can set limits on how much time we're willing to spend with certain people. This is crucial for maintaining a healthy balance in our lives and avoiding burnout. Boundaries help us create the life we want. Ultimately, setting boundaries is all about creating the life we want. When we have healthy boundaries, we're more likely to make choices that are in line with our values and goals. We're also less likely to let others control or manipulate us. Instead, we can create the life we want, something that's essential for a sense of happiness and fulfillment. What are some common boundary issues? There are many different types of boundary issues, but they all revolve around the same basic concept. A boundary issue is any problem that arises in relationships due to a lack of clear boundaries. By understanding common boundary issues, you will be better equipped to deal with them should they come up in your own life. Not knowing what you want. This is a common boundary issue because it can be difficult to figure out what you want, especially if you have never thought about it before. You may find yourself feeling stuck or lost when trying to make decisions. Not being assertive. Another common boundary issue is not being assertive enough. This can cause problems when you try to communicate your needs or set boundaries with others. You may end up feeling resentful or taken advantage of if you don't speak up for yourself. People-pleasing. People-pleasing is another common boundary issue. This happens when you put the needs of others before your own, or when you try to please everyone all the time. This can lead to feelings of resentment and burnout. Not setting limits. Another common boundary issue is not setting limits. This can happen when you are afraid of saying no or setting boundaries with others. Without limits, you may end up feeling overwhelmed or taken advantage of. Being a doormat. Being a doormat is another common boundary issue. This happens when you let others walk all over you or take advantage of you. This can leave you feeling used and resentful. Taking on too much. Another common boundary issue is taking on too much. This can happen when you try to do everything yourself or take on more than you can handle. This can lead to feelings of being overwhelmed and stressed out. Being a control freak. Another common boundary issue is being a control freak. This happens when you try to control everything and everyone around you. This can lead to feelings of frustration and powerlessness. Not expressing your needs. Another common boundary issue is not expressing your needs. This can happen when you are afraid of being seen as needy or want to appear strong. This can leave you feeling resentful and unfulfilled. Being too independent. Another common boundary issue is being too independent. This can happen when you try to do everything yourself or avoid relying on others. This can lead to feelings of isolation and loneliness. Being codependent. Another common boundary issue is being codependent. This happens when you rely on others too much or let them control your life. This can leave you feeling powerless and trapped. These are just some of the common boundary issues that people face. If you recognize any of these issues in yourself, don't worry. There are ways to overcome them. Just remember that you are not alone and there is help available. If you are struggling with any of these issues, please seek professional help. A therapist can help you work through these issues and develop healthy boundaries. How can you set boundaries with others? When I mention others, I mean people in general, not just people you know. You can set boundaries with anyone, really. Here are some ways to do it. Be assertive. This means being confident and firm in what you say. If you're not assertive, people will walk all over you. They'll take advantage of your good nature and push you around. So be assertive. Stand up for yourself and don't let people treat you like a doormat. Communicate clearly. Make sure that when you're communicating with others, you're doing so clearly. This means speaking in a clear voice and using words that everyone will understand. Avoid jargon or technical terms that only experts would know. And if someone doesn't understand what you're saying, don't get frustrated with them, explain it in a different way. Be direct. This ties in with being assertive and communicating clearly. When you're setting boundaries, be direct about it. Don't beat around the bush or try to sugarcoat things. Just say what you need to say plainly and directly. Know your limits. Before you can set boundaries with others, you need to know your own limits first. What are you willing to tolerate? What are your deal breakers? Once you know these things, it'll be easier for you to communicate them to others. Set consequences. If someone crosses your boundaries, make sure you have consequences in place. This might mean ending the relationship, or it might mean something less drastic like asking them to leave your house. But whatever it is, make sure they know that there will be repercussions if they don't respect your boundaries. Be consistent. If you want people to take your boundaries seriously, you need to be consistent in enforcing them. Every time someone crosses a boundary, make sure you follow through with the consequences you've set. If you don't, they'll quickly learn that they can push you around and get away with it. Be firm. When you're setting boundaries, it's important to be firm about it. This doesn't mean being rude or aggressive, just be clear that you mean what you say. If you soften your words or give in too easily, people will take advantage of it. Don't make excuses. When you're setting boundaries, don't make excuses for why they're there. For example, if you don't want to go out with someone because you're not interested in them, don't make up an excuse like "I'm too busy" or "I have a headache." Just be honest and say that you're not interested. Be respectful. Even though you're setting boundaries, that doesn't mean you can't be respectful of others. When you're assertive and firm, do it in a way that's respectful. Avoid name-calling or putting people down. Just state your boundary in a calm and respectful way. Keep it simple. When you're setting boundaries, try to keep things simple. Don't make them too complicated or hard to understand. The simpler they are, the easier it will be for others to respect them. Setting boundaries is an important part of maintaining healthy relationships with others. By being assertive, communicating clearly, and being firm in what you say, you can set boundaries that will be respected. And when you have healthy boundaries in place, it'll lead to healthier and happier relationships overall. When is it appropriate to confront someone about a boundary issue? It can often be difficult to know when it is appropriate to confront someone about a boundary issue. There are many factors to consider, such as the severity of the issue, the relationship between you and the other person, and the potential consequences of confronting them. This is because boundary issues can be delicate and sensitive, and sometimes it is best to just let them go. However, there are also times when it is necessary to confront someone about a boundary issue. For example, if the issue is serious and is impacting your life in a negative way, or if you have repeatedly asked them to stop and they have not listened. In these cases, it is important to be clear about what the problem is and why you are confronting them about it. Here are some reasons you may need to confront someone about a boundary issue. If the issue is serious and is affecting your well-being. An example of this is if someone is repeatedly invading your personal space or making you feel uncomfortable. If the issue is impacting your work or ability to do your job properly. For instance, if someone keeps interrupting you when you're trying to concentrate or they're constantly talking over you in meetings. If the other person is breaching a boundary that you've previously discussed with them and agreed upon. This could be something like them coming into your home without permission or using your belongings without asking. If the issue is affecting your relationship with the other person. For example, if they're repeatedly breaking promises or flirting with other people when you're together. If you feel like the other person is taking advantage of you. This could be in terms of your time, energy, or resources. If the issue is making you feel nervous or anxious. An example of this would be if someone keeps asking personal questions that make you uncomfortable. If you've tried to resolve the issue yourself, but it hasn't worked. This could involve talking to the person about your concerns or trying to ignore the problem and hope it goes away on its own. If the other person is behaving in a way that is illegal or could harm someone else. This might include them driving recklessly or being abusive towards another person. If confronting the other person is likely to improve the situation. This could be the case if they're unaware of the problem or if they're generally receptive to feedback. If you feel like it's something you need to do for your own peace of mind. Ultimately, you'll need to decide what's best for you and whether confronting the other person is likely to bring about the outcome you want. As you can see, there are many factors to consider when deciding whether or not to confront someone about a boundary issue. It is important to weigh all of these factors carefully before making a decision. In some cases, it may be best to confront the other person, while in others it may be best to avoid a confrontation. Ultimately, the decision is yours to make. How can you handle boundary issues when they arise? It's inevitable that boundary issues will arise in any close relationship. Whether it's a disagreement about how much time to spend together, what level of intimacy is comfortable, or what role each person plays in decision-making, every couple will encounter some form of boundary issue at some point. The key to resolving boundary issues is effective communication. It's important to be able to talk openly and honestly with your partner about your needs and expectations. Only by talking through the issue can you hope to come to a resolution that works for both of you. Here are some tips for effectively handling boundary issues in a relationship. Talk about your needs early on. When you first start dating someone, it's important to communicate your needs and expectations clearly. This will help to avoid any misunderstandings or hurt feelings further down the line. Be honest with each other. If a boundary issue arises, it's important to be honest with your partner about how you're feeling. Honesty is essential in any relationship if you want it to thrive. Respect each other's boundaries. Once you've discussed your needs and expectations, it's important to respect each other's boundaries. This means not pushing beyond what the other person is comfortable with and being understanding if they need some space. Be willing to compromise. In any relationship, there will be times when both parties need to compromise in order to reach a resolution. If you're not willing to budge on an issue, it's likely that the boundary issue will remain unresolved. Communicate regularly. It's important to check in with each other regularly and communicate openly about how you're both feeling. This will help to prevent any minor issues from escalating into bigger problems. Don't take things personally. When boundary issues arise, it can be easy to take things personally and feel like you're being attacked or rejected. It's important to remember that boundary issues are about differences in needs and expectations, not about you as a person. Avoid ultimatums. Threatening to break up or end the relationship if a boundary issue isn't resolved is not productive and will only make the situation worse. Ultimatums should be avoided at all costs. Seek professional help. If you're struggling to resolve a boundary issue, it may be helpful to seek professional help from a therapist or counselor. They can provide impartial guidance and support to help you through the process. Be patient. Resolving boundary issues can take time, so it's important to be patient with each other. Rushing things will only make the situation more difficult. Have faith in your relationship. When boundary issues arise, it can be easy to doubt your relationship and wonder if it's worth fighting for. It's important to remember that all relationships have their challenges and that every couple goes through rough patches. If you have faith in your relationship, you'll be able to overcome anything. Boundary issues are a normal part of any close relationship. The key to resolving them is effective communication. By talking openly and honestly with your partner, being willing to compromise, and having faith in your relationship, you can overcome any boundary issue. What are some tips for setting and maintaining healthy boundaries? Setting and maintaining healthy boundaries is essential to our well-being. It allows us to take care of ourselves emotionally and physically, and sets the stage for healthier relationships. Unfortunately, pleasing people often gets in the way of setting boundaries. People pleasers tend to put others' needs above their own, which can lead to feelings of resentment and bitterness. If you're a people pleaser, it's important to learn how to set boundaries so that you can take care of yourself both physically and emotionally. Here are 10 tips for setting and maintaining healthy boundaries. Define your limits. What are you comfortable with? What are your deal breakers? When you know what your limits are, it's easier to stick to them. Communicate your limits to others. It's important to communicate your limits to the people in your life. This way, they know what to expect from you and vice versa. Be assertive. Don't be afraid to say no when you need to. It's okay to put your needs first sometimes. Set boundaries with yourself. in addition to setting boundaries with others, it's also important to set boundaries with yourself. For example, if you're a night owl, don't force yourself to go to bed early just because you think you should. Your body will thank you for respecting its natural circadian rhythm. Respect other people's boundaries. Just as you want others to respect your boundaries, it's important to respect the boundaries of others. This includes both physical and emotional boundaries. Don't take things personally. If someone doesn't want to do something that you want to do, don't take it personally. It's not about you, it's about them. Avoid people pleasers. People pleasers tend to be doormats, and they're often taken advantage of as a result. If you find yourself in this situation, it's time to set some boundaries. Be honest with yourself. Honesty is key when it comes to boundary setting. Be honest with yourself about what you're comfortable with and what you're not. This way, you won't find yourself in a situation that you're not comfortable with. Be honest with others. Just as it's important to be honest with yourself, it's also important to be honest with others. If you're not comfortable with something, don't do it just to please someone else. Don't be afraid to ask for help. If you're struggling to set boundaries, don't be afraid to ask for help from a friend, therapist, or other trusted individual. They can provide guidance and support as you learn to set healthy boundaries. Setting and maintaining healthy boundaries is essential to our well-being. It allows us to take care of ourselves emotionally and physically, and sets the stage for healthier relationships. If you're a people pleaser, it's important to learn how to set boundaries so that you can take care of yourself both physically and emotionally. Use these tips to help you set and maintain healthy boundaries in your life.